Okay, so get this right. We've got cryptocurrency, obviously a huge deal these days, but then you throw in a former president's family, and to top it all off, a presidential pardon.
It's a lot to unpack, for sure. It really makes you think about what's happening beneath the surface.
Exactly. It's almost like a puzzle with all these interlocking pieces. We're diving deep today into reports about World Liberty Financial.
Which is the Trump family's crypto venture, as far as we know.
Right, and there's all this talk about them maybe trying to get a piece of Binance's U.S. operations. And then there's CZ.
Changpeng Zhao, the founder of Binance.
Yes, CZ. And the reports suggesting he might be trying to get a pardon from Donald Trump.
And the timing of all of this is just fascinating. It's like all these threads are coming together at the same time.
To help us navigate this, we've got some great reporting to work with. We've got pieces from the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, Fortune, and even some direct insights from CZ himself, straight from his X feed.
It's a pretty tangled web, and honestly, that's why I thought this would be a perfect deep dive topic.
Definitely. We want to go beyond those attention-grabbing headlines and really try to grasp what these allegations are all about. We want to know what CZ's stance is, get a grip on the whole legal backstory of Binance in the U.S., and then step back and try to understand the bigger picture.
Totally agree. There's a lot at stake here.
So let's get right to it. First things first, what exactly are these reports claiming about the Trump family and Binance?
Well, the heart of what the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg are saying is that World Liberty Financial, WLF for short, has been exploring a potential financial stake in Binance's U.S. side of things. And like we said, WLF is believed to be tied to Donald Jr., Eric, and Barron Trump.
And this is happening just as Binance is working hard to reestablish its presence in the U.S. after some pretty big legal hurdles.
Exactly. It's all happening right as Binance is trying to make a comeback.
Which makes you wonder, what's the timing about here?
That's the big question, right? And to make things even more interesting, these reports about a possible WLF investment are surfacing at the same time as separate reports suggesting that CZ is seeking a presidential pardon from Donald Trump.
And we know CZ was convicted on money laundering charges and did serve time. So this pardon situation adds a whole other dimension.
It absolutely does. You've got these two seemingly separate stories that are somehow converging, and that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating and a little bit unsettling.
It's definitely giving off some major financial thriller vibes. Now, we can't ignore CZ's reaction to all of this. He's been pretty vocal on X.
Oh, yeah, he definitely had something to say.
So what was CZ's take?
Well, when it came to the business deal rumors, CZ issued a pretty straightforward denial. He specifically pointed to the Wall Street Journal's article and said they got the facts wrong.
So he's flat out denying those investment discussions.
Completely. He's saying there haven't been any talks about a Binance US deal with anyone at all.
Okay, pretty clear on that front. But what about the pardon? Did he address that as directly?
That's where things get a little more interesting. He didn't outright deny it. His comments about the pardon were, I'd say, more thought-provoking. He said something along the lines of no felon would mind a pardon.
Which, in a way, is true, but it doesn't really tell us much.
Exactly. It's very general, almost philosophical. But then he went on to point out that, as far as he knows, he's the only person in U.S. history to be jailed for a single Bank Secrecy Act charge.
The Bank Secrecy Act, for those who might not know, essentially makes sure financial institutions have ways to prevent money laundering. And Binance, it turned out, wasn't doing enough in that area.
Right. There were some significant gaps in their safeguards, and that's what landed CZ in trouble.
So even though he doesn't come right out and say he wants a pardon, he's definitely leaving that door open and maybe even making a case for why he thinks he deserves one.
It's a subtle approach, for sure.
And he didn't stop there. He also implied that the original report might have been politically motivated.
Oh, yeah, he definitely went there. He called the Wall Street Journal's article a politically driven attack on the president in crypto. He even brought up a war on crypto that he claims started under a previous administration.
He didn't actually name which administration he was talking about, did he?
No, he didn't, but it's pretty clear he's hinting at a prior Trump administration. It's an interesting angle, like he's suggesting that the political climate surrounding crypto is shifting, and that's playing a role in all of this.
This is getting complex. So we've got the Trump family possibly wanting to invest in Binance, U.S., CZ maybe trying for a pardon, and now we're adding in a potential political motivation for the whole story. It's a lot to keep track of. Now, let's back up for a second. What exactly got Binance into this mess in the U.S. in the first place?
It's important to remember that Binance faced some very serious legal trouble here in the U.S. The Department of Justice came after them with some hefty charges.
They weren't messing around.
No, they weren't. The charges were about Binance's anti-money laundering practices, or lack thereof, and also about them operating as an unregistered money transmitter.
Unregistered money transmitter. What does that even mean?
Well, it means they were basically helping people exchange money, potentially large sums of money, without having the required licenses.
Ah, so that's a problem because there's no oversight, no way to track where the money is going.
Exactly. And that can have huge implications for financial security and preventing things like money laundering, which is ironic considering what CZ was convicted of. These charges basically forced Binance to drastically scale back their operations in the U.S.
And it wasn't just a slap on the wrist, was it? What kind of penalties did they face?
This was not a small fine. We're talking a record-breaking settlement in 2023. Binance had to cough up a whopping $4.3 billion.
$4.3 billion. That's a massive amount.
It's huge. And as part of the settlement, CZ himself admitted to money laundering charges. He had to step down as CEO and ended up spending 4 months in prison.
That's a pretty dramatic fall from grace
Yeah.
for someone who was running one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world.
It was a major shakeup for the whole industry, for sure.
So that's the background, right? Binance is trying to bounce back. And that's supposedly when these talks with the Trump family's venture started up. Let's dive into that a bit. What is World Liberty Financial, this WLF we keep hearing about?
Think of it as the Trump family's fresh foray into the world of crypto. Everything points to it being run by Donald Jr., Eric, and even Barron Trump, which is interesting.
A real family affair.
It seems that way. And there are reports that Steve Witkoff is involved, too. He's a longtime Trump associate and is currently the president's special envoy to the Middle East.
So close ties to the family.
Definitely. And it said that he's been part of those conversations with Binance.
Interesting. And these discussions, according to the reports, all started around the time of the election, just as Binance was figuring out how to get back into the U.S. market.
So what do you think is motivating the Trump family here? Why crypto and why Binance in particular? Well, you can't ignore the fact that cryptocurrency is still seen as a potentially huge moneymaker, even with all the ups and downs. The Trump family might be hoping to get in on that action through WLF and score big.
That makes sense. They're businessmen after all.
Right. But then there's also the widespread belief that a Trump presidency could mean a much friendlier environment for crypto businesses in terms of regulations. That could make a venture like this way more appealing, way more likely to turn a profit.
So maybe they're betting on a Trump win and a more relaxed regulatory landscape.
It's a gamble for sure, but potentially a lucrative one. And that's what makes this whole situation so intriguing. It's not just about potential profits, it's about the lines getting blurred between personal financial gain and political influence.
Because if a President Trump is seen as pro-crypto, he could make decisions and influence regulations that directly benefit businesses like WLF.
Exactly, and that raises some uncomfortable questions about whether access and favors are becoming a new kind of currency in the crypto world.
And a pardon for CZ would definitely clear the way for a venture like this, wouldn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. A pardon would basically remove a major obstacle to Binance fully operating in the U.S. financial system. That would make a stake in their U.S. operations a lot more valuable.
So everyone involved could potentially come out ahead. When we talk about a financial stake, what would that look like in practice?
It could take a few different forms. It could mean WLF buys shares of Binance.us, invests a bunch of money into the company, or maybe even forms a partnership where they get partial ownership and some say in how things are run.
Got it. You mentioned the idea of a more favorable regulatory environment under President Trump. What makes people think that's likely?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about the possibility of a Trump administration being much softer on crypto regulations. And that talk alone is a pretty powerful force.
How so?
Well, just the perception of a more crypto-friendly environment can encourage foreign crypto companies to take another look at the U.S. market.
They see an opportunity.
Exactly. And some people even link this shift in sentiment to the recent surge in crypto prices. Bitcoin, for example, just hit new all-time highs.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The belief in looser regulations is actually driving up the market.
In a way, yes. And this whole idea of a Trump administration being good for crypto seems to be drawing in other big players, too. Take Justin Sun, for example.
Right, the Chinese-born investor.
Yeah, and get this. He just dropped over $30 million into World Liberty Financial.
That's a serious investment.
It is, and it happened just last November. And something else that's interesting, Justin Sun also had a lawsuit from the SEC, but that's been put on hold recently.
Interesting.
Some people see that as another sign that a pardon for Zhao could be in the cards, like maybe there's a general trend towards being more lenient with certain people in the crypto world.
This whole thing is like a giant web with all these threads connecting finance, politics, and regulation. It's a lot to take in. Now, zooming out a bit, have there been other instances of the Trump family using their connections for business purposes since they left office?
There have been some reports suggesting that this is part of a larger pattern. We've heard about Donald Trump Jr.'s company putting money into Elon Musk's businesses.
And wasn't there something about people paying to get access to the former president?
Right, there were those reports too. It kind of points to a way of doing business where political connections and influence play a big role even after leaving the White House.
It's like they're leveraging their past positions to open doors in the business world.
Exactly. And don't forget, President Trump himself has said he wants to be the crypto president. He's talked about loosening regulations in the crypto sector.
So this could be a sign of a bigger strategy, where they're actively trying to get financially involved in the crypto world while using their political clout to their advantage.
It's definitely a possibility. And while there are supposed to be rules against using public office for private business, the Trump family has a history of navigating these gray areas.
Okay, so let's try to sum this all up. We've got these reports saying the Trump family's crypto venture wants to invest in Binance US, which is trying to rebuild after getting hit with some major legal problems. At the same time, CZ, Binance's founder, is apparently trying to get a pardon from Donald Trump after serving time for money laundering. CZ has publicly denied any business deal with the Trumps, but hasn't been as clear about whether he's seeking a pardon. And he's even suggested that the whole story was politically motivated.
Right, and all of this is happening against a backdrop of a potential Trump presidency and the belief that he would be more friendly towards crypto, which is attracting other big players like Justin Sun.
It's mind-boggling, really. So, for everyone listening, what are the big questions they should be asking themselves as they try to make sense of this?
Well, first off, how would a pardon for CZ change the future of Binance in the U.S., especially when it comes to regulations? I mean, would they get a free pass?
That's a big one.
And then there's the whole issue of the Trump family's involvement. What does this say about fairness and impartiality in both politics and the world of financial regulation?
It definitely raises some red flags.
And on an even bigger scale, what does this whole situation tell us about the growing connection between political power and the fast-moving world of crypto?
That's a question that goes way beyond just this one story. It makes you think about the potential for this kind of crossover to influence not only business, but also the justice system itself.
It's a pretty scary thought, honestly.
It is. This deep dive has definitely shed light on a very complex and concerning situation. Thanks for helping us break it all down.
Absolutely. And the story's not over yet. I'm sure we'll see more developments.
No doubt. And for our listeners, as you process all of this, think about the long-term impact this kind of connection between powerful politicians and big crypto exchanges could have on the whole industry. If this becomes the norm, what does that mean for the reputation of crypto and the rules that govern it? What kind of precedent does it set for the future of this dynamic and ever-changing space? We encourage you to dig deeper into the sources we've talked about and form your own conclusions. Until next time.